just enough to get my room so I could ram his shit up, ram it up his ass. Right? My window was there. He tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the face. Got him in his drive already. I don't owe nothing. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. Yeah. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s. Well, you know, I made incredible. I made the hooks. I made the melodies. Yeah. I made the shit, dog. I'm the man. I banged it.
Max B and Jim Jones used to be closer than brothers. But the second Jim turned his back, everything flipped. That bond shattered, and Max morphed from Jim's secret weapon in the studio to his biggest nightmare on the streets. People still talk about how wild it got. Rumors flew that Max took his girl, wrecked his ride, and sparked chaos all through Harlem just to get at him. Max wasn't bluffing, and the city felt the tension heavy. Let's break it down. Charlie Wingate, better known as Max B, was born and bred in Harlem, New York.
Jim Jones. Compare the names. Look, Max Bigavel, Jim Jones. That don't even add up. That's not on my level, man.
Right in the middle of that legendary uptown hustle. His story begins inside the Abraham Lincoln housing projects, where every day was a fight to make it out alive. Life hit him hard early. His mom battled crack addiction and spent time in and out of prison, leaving his grandmother to raise him. She became his rock, the only steady thing in a world that kept trying to pull him back into the streets. But even her love couldn't block out that street noise calling his name. Before he became the Wave, young Charlie was part of the Boys Choir of Harlem. Yeah, that's where it all started. Those soulful hooks, that smooth melodic tone, that wavy flow, it all came from there. But even with all that talent, the melody couldn't save him from the reality outside. By 18, Max B had already stepped deep into the wrong lane, chasing fast money instead of music. Back in 1997, Max B got caught up in a robbery case that landed him behind bars for nearly 8 long years. But prison didn't crush him. It carved him into something sharper, stronger, and way more dangerous. When he finally walked out in 2005, he wasn't just Charlie Wingate anymore. He stepped out as Max Bigavel, a whole new beast with scars that told stories and confidence you couldn't fake. The name Bigavel wasn't random either. He built it from legends: Biggie Smalls, Machiavelli, Tupac, and Jigga, Jay-Z.
So your name is Max B, aka Max Bigavel. We know Bigavel stands for Big Jig and Pac, right? But where did the
Big
name...
Jig and Machiavelli, baby.
Yeah.
Big Jig and Machiavelli.
Max saw himself as a mix of all four: Biggie's hypnotic flow, Pac's raw pain, Jay's boss swagger, and Machiavelli's fearless vision. He believed he was the next evolution of that energy, and honestly, Harlem could feel it. When Max hit the streets again, Harlem was on fire. The Diplomats had the whole city in a chokehold. Cameron and Jim Jones were running the game, their movement loud and flashy. Max reconnected with Cam, and through that link, he met Jim Jones. From there, things moved fast. Max signed with Jim's Bird Gang label and started cooking up with Harlem's own hitmaker, Dame Grease. The vibe was electric. In 2006, Max dropped his first mixtape, $1 Million Baby, and the reaction was instant. The streets lost their minds. That raspy voice, that slick talk, that raw, unfiltered flavor, it hit different. It was like lightning trapped in a verse, and everyone knew something special had just been unleashed.
Boyfriend Charlie Wingate, aka Max B, a rapper, about the men's money. Then Wingate reaches out to this man, Calvin Leardom.
Bird Gang wasn't just a crew, it was a movement. Alongside Max B, another star was rising fast: Stack Bundles. With both of them under Jim Jones's wing, Bird Gang looked unstoppable, like a gold mine ready to explode. Max became Jim's secret weapon, the voice that turned regular tracks into street anthems. Songs like Baby Girl hit hard. Every hook, every verse Max touched made the sound bigger, smoother, and impossible to ignore. But even with all that success, Max could never fully escape the streets. No matter how bright the spotlight got, the shadows always followed close. Then came September 2006, the month everything flipped for real.
It all began the morning of September 22nd at the Fort Lee Holiday Inn. Police are called there after a man is shot to death. The victim, David Taylor from Florida, was staying in room 227.
Through his ex-girlfriend, Gina Conway, Max heard about a flashy dude named Alan J. Plowden, a smooth talker running a mortgage and mail fraud hustle, always flexing with cash and luxury cars. Gina spilled the details to Max, and that's when the temptation started creeping in. She said that jealousy and hunger took over, and according to her, Max didn't hide his intentions. He allegedly told her straight up that they could hit a lick and come up big. Everybody would eat if they pulled it off. What happened next? That part's still wrapped in mystery and rumors. But one thing's for sure, the ending was dark and unforgettable. Max B wasn't even there when it all went down, but prosecutors claimed he was the mastermind pulling the strings from behind the scenes. In court, Gina Conway, who had her own side hustles going on from dealing to dancing, took the stand and pointed the finger straight at Max. She said he sent her and his stepbrother, Kelvin Sims Leardam, to rob Alan Plowden at a Holiday Inn over in New Jersey.
Right around that time, Max B gets found guilty on 9 of 11 counts, including felony murder. And he gets sentenced to, was it 75 years?
Yeah, 75.
The setup was supposed to be simple. Wait until Plowden hit the club, sneak into his room, and grab whatever cash they could find. But from the start, nothing went as planned. Gina and Sims got turned around for hours, missing exits and wasting time, turning a quick job into a total disaster. When they finally made it to the hotel, it was already too late. Plowden was back, knocked out next to another woman. That's when things took a dark turn. Out of nowhere, a man named David Taylor walked into the room. He wasn't even supposed to be there. Sims panicked, lost control, and fired one shot straight to the face, execution style. That single pull of the trigger flipped everything. What was supposed to be a robbery just became a murder. Gina Conway was the first domino to drop, and once she did, everything came crashing down. The second she got caught, she folded fast to save herself. She handed over a 169-page statement and didn't hold back a thing. In that paperwork, she threw Max straight under the bus, naming him as the one who set the whole plan in motion. According to her, Max had promised her everything: money, loyalty, forever, if she played her part. But when the feds came for Max, they came hard. He was hit with life-changing charges, including felony murder, and his bail got set at a jaw-dropping $2 million. Sitting in that cold cell, Max's world froze, while everyone else's just kept spinning. And outside those walls, Jim Jones, the same man who signed Max and once called him family, was on top of the world. Jim dropped "We Fly High," ballin', and the record exploded. It became the anthem of 2006, blasting from every club, car, and corner in the city. Jim was living that superstar life, and Max claimed he was the real pen behind it all. He said he ghost wrote "Ballin'" and a bunch of Jim's other big hits too. But while Jim was out cashing checks and flexing in interviews, Max was stuck in a cell fighting for both his life and his name. 10 long months passed before his bail finally got knocked down to $90,000, and that's when Jim stepped back into the picture. But not like a real friend would. Instead of lifting Max out of that mess out of loyalty, reports say Jim allegedly tried to use the bail money as leverage, turning friendship into business and leaving Max feeling betrayed in the worst way. Jim finally agreed to bail Max out, but there was a catch, and it cut deep. He told Max he'd only help if Max signed over all his publishing rights and locked himself into a deal for 6 full albums under Jim's control.
Originally, you were sentenced to 75 years, but then last July, you said you got reduced to 20 years and then to 12 years.
Stuck behind bars with no real way out, Max didn't have many choices. Desperate for freedom, he signed the papers, giving Jim full control over the sound that he created, the wavy style that was starting to shake up the whole East Coast. When Max B finally walked out of jail in July 2007, he wasn't the same man. He was colder now, sharper, harder, and filled with resentment. He came home broke, betrayed, and trapped by a contract that basically sold off his future to the same man he once called his brother. Meanwhile, Jim Jones's name was everywhere. His fame was exploding, and Max had to sit back and watch while people shouted "Ballin'," knowing he had helped build that moment. Out in the streets, Max's legend had started growing like wildfire. His name lived through mixtapes, street DVDs, and late-night barbershop debates. People were calling him the wavy one. But the more the streets celebrated Max, the clearer it became that Jim wasn't planning to put him back in the spotlight. And Max wasn't having that. He was done being quiet, done being overlooked, done being used. He was ready to take his respect back, no matter the cost. He had every right to feel betrayed because it wasn't just about music politics anymore. This was about money, ownership, and pride. Jim Jones owned every piece of Max's publishing. Every hook, every melody, every slick ad-lib, every catchy line. And while Jim was getting paid off all of it, Max was left watching from the sidelines, knowing he built the sound that made another man rich. It wasn't just business anymore. The bond between Max B and Jim Jones was completely shattered. The loyalty was gone, the trust destroyed, and Max's heart turned ice cold. All that pain and betrayal lit a fire in him, and that fire was fueled by one word: revenge. So Max walked away from Bird Gang with a mission. If Jim Jones wasn't going to give him the credit, respect, and money he deserved, then Max was going to make sure the world saw the truth. Nothing was off limits. He was ready to expose it all, and he didn't care who got caught in the flames. Not long after, Max found the perfect partner in crime, French Montana. Back then, French wasn't the superstar we know today. He was a street hustler turned filmmaker, known for his Raw Cocaine City DVD series that showed the real grind of Bronx life and the New York hustle. French already had his own bad blood with Jim Jones after rumors spread that Jim had spoken down on him following a shooting incident. So when French and Max linked up, it wasn't just business, it was personal. Their connection was instant. Two street soldiers, both betrayed and both hungry for payback. Together, they formed Coke Wave, a movement that was bold, rebellious, and unstoppable. It became one of the most legendary mixtape runs ever, raw, unfiltered, and packed with attitude. By then, Max had already realized the industry wasn't built to protect artists like him. He didn't own his publishing, had no label backing, and no corporate machine behind him. But he did have a gift that couldn't be bought. His voice carried the streets, his melodies hit deep, and his wave couldn't be denied. When the system tried to box him in, Max did what real hustlers do. He went underground. If the industry was gonna freeze him out, he'd let the streets decide his worth. Max started dropping his music for free, flooding the blocks and the internet with raw heat that labels couldn't control. But these weren't just mixtapes. They were musical grenades, and every track was aimed right at Jim Jones and anyone standing beside him. The first big strike, a mixtape called Public Domain 3, and even the cover told the story loud and clear. Max stood in a graveyard, posing next to tombstones engraved with names like Jim Jones, Milli Vanilli, and Joel Santana. It was pure symbolism. He was burying his old crew, one by one. Max compared Jim and Jules to Milli Vanilli, the duo known for faking their talent, saying they were riding off the wave he created. He mocked them boldly through his lyrics, dropping lines like lip-sync rapping. I know them dudes need me. I was giving them the loot, but them dudes done blew it. Every bar was a direct hit, and the fans couldn't get enough of the chaos. But Max didn't stop there. He went way beyond the music. He started hitting reputations, relationships, and personal lives, shaking up everything Jim Jones had built. The beef got so wild that people couldn't tell where the music ended and real life began. Then came one of the most shocking moments in the feud, the release of She Touched It in Miami. In the track, Max threw a brutal claim about Jim's longtime girlfriend, Chrissy Lampkin, saying she had allegedly been intimate with him. The lyrics were graphic, bold, and laced with mockery. Max laughed through the bars, turning pain into performance. He painted Jim as a man losing control of his circle, while everyone around him whispered and laughed behind his back. The streets went crazy over it. Some called it disrespectful, others called it genius. But one thing was certain, Max B had turned betrayal into entertainment, and Harlem was tuned all the way in. Jim Jones was shocked, completely blindsided by the storm Max B unleashed. He didn't see it coming at all. When the shots started flying through the music, Jim scrambled to defend himself, brushing off Max's claims like they were nothing. He denied the rumors, downplayed the beef, and tried to act like Max was just another washed-up rapper who never made it off the shelf. He even swore that Max didn't write We Fly High, his biggest hit. But the streets weren't buying that story. People started digging, and soon the truth started surfacing. Max's voice was all over the original reference tracks. Fans could hear him in the background, and once that got out, the whispers turned to full-blown conversations questioning Jim's real place in Dipset's success. Was Jim the mastermind, or was Max the ghost behind the hits? Max didn't just talk tough, he moved like he meant war. He claimed that one day Jim Jones tried to ambush him by blocking his car in a parking lot with his Bentley. According to Max, he saw it coming, slammed his car into Jim's Bentley to push it out of the way, and even landed a few punches before speeding off. It sounded like something out of a movie, but Max was out here showing off the dents in his car like badges of honor. French Montana and others in Max's circle backed his story, saying it went down exactly how Max told it. That only made the legend grow bigger. And soon, Max wasn't just a rapper anymore, he was a Harlem myth in motion. Then came November 2008 when Max B and French Montana decided to take things off the mic and into real life. They rolled deep into Manhattan, pulled up on Jim Jones in person, and walked straight into the building where Jim was recording. No hesitation, no fear. It was a bold message to everyone watching. The streets weren't safe for Jim anymore. Max later claimed that when Jim realized what was about to go down, he panicked and called the cops, something that only made the tension worse. To Max and his crew, that move felt like the ultimate betrayal of street code, and it added another layer of humiliation to an already burning feud. Around that same time, things spiraled even further. Their crews clashed at a Brooklyn nightclub, and what started as a few words quickly exploded into a wild, all-out brawl. Chairs were flying, bottles breaking, people screaming. Even K9 units had to show up to break it all apart. It felt straight out of an action movie, but this wasn't fiction. This was the real-life chaos that came from years of broken loyalty and bruised egos. By the time the dust settled, Max B had done more than diss Jim Jones. He turned him into a punchline. The streets were laughing, the internet was buzzing, and Max's legend was growing louder every day. He became a cult hero, the kind of artist who didn't need a label or industry cosign to prove his worth. Even while locked into a deal that left him empty-handed, he found a way to keep his name alive, flooding the streets with track after track that people still play to this day. But while the beef with Jim kept spreading like wildfire through mixtape circles and blogs, a much bigger storm was waiting for Max. Behind all the noise, he was gearing up for the fight of his life, a criminal trial that threatened to bury his wave for good. On June 9th, 2009, Max B walked into the Bergen County Courthouse with his head high, his crew beside him, cameras flashing, and that same trademark wavy swagger in his step. His legal team talked tough, confident that Max could beat the case, but deep down, everyone knew the outcome could change his life forever. Max's legal team walked into that courtroom with confidence, claiming they had ripped apart the prosecution's main witness during cross-examination. That witness was none other than Gina Conway, the same woman at the center of the entire case, the one who had turned herself in and flipped on Max and his stepbrother, Kelvin Sims Leardam, to save herself from a heavier sentence. The defense went all in, accusing Gina of being a scorned woman with revenge in her heart, someone who twisted the story just to get a deal. They said she was lying to cut her own time, throwing Max under the bus to protect herself. But courtrooms aren't the streets. Swagger, loyalty, and reputation don't win you freedom there. In front of that jury, charm didn't matter, only evidence did. When the verdict came down, everything Max thought he knew about loyalty, street code, and redemption collapsed in one brutal moment. The jury found him guilty on 9 out of 11 counts, including armed robbery, conspiracy, aggravated assault, and felony murder. Just like that, the wave came crashing down. The prosecution's story hit hard. They painted Max as the mastermind behind the entire setup. Even though he wasn't there when the trigger was pulled, they said he was the one who planned it all. The one who gave the green light for Gina and Kelvin to pull the job while he waited to reap the rewards. The whole case hinged on Gina Conway's testimony. She had made a deal with the government that changed everything. Her original murder charges were reduced to armed robbery and manslaughter in exchange for her cooperation. That deal meant she'd be facing a recommended 18-year sentence instead of life. Max's defense fought tooth and nail, arguing that Gina had fabricated parts of her story just to shave years off her time. But it didn't matter, the jury believed her. And for Max B, the man who once felt untouchable, that courtroom became the place where his empire finally fell apart. In a twist that stunned the courtroom, Gina Conway herself even testified that Max didn't know anything about the robbery at first. She claimed she only used Max's name to convince her boyfriend Kelvin to go through with the plan. The defense jumped on that fast, saying Gina only brought Max into the mix later, out of heartbreak, jealousy, and pure self-interest, trying to paint him as the mastermind just to earn herself a lighter sentence. But the jury wasn't buying it. They didn't see a setup, they saw a plan, and they pinned it all on Max. On September 3rd, 2009, the verdict came down hard, 75 years in prison, with parole eligibility pushed all the way to 2042. Just like that, Max B went from being a street legend with a cult following to an inmate overnight. Harlem felt the blow instantly. The wave that once flooded the streets went quiet, and fans were left stunned. The same swagger that once filled clubs and car stereos was now trapped behind cold steel bars. But while the city grieved, Jim Jones looked like he was celebrating. From a business point of view, it seemed like he just pulled off the ultimate checkmate. Max was locked away, his voice silenced, and Jim still controlled the publishing rights to all of Max's work. Every hook, every melody, every catchy line that built his sound. Money from Max's music kept rolling straight into Jim's pockets. And instead of showing mercy, Jim reportedly mocked Max publicly, flaunting the fact that the wave he once rode now belonged entirely to him. Every time Jim Jones got the mic, he took a shot at Max B. He called him goofy names, brushed him off like he was nothing, and kept pushing the same tired story, that Max was washed up before he ever even started. In interviews, Jim made it seem like he'd moved on for good, like Max was just old stock collecting dust, something he once used but would never touch again. But what Jim didn't realize was that the streets hadn't forgotten. Even behind bars, Max B refused to fade away. His name still echoed through Harlem, the Bronx, and beyond. Whispered in barbershops, blasted in cars, shouted in mixtapes, Max was still moving energy through the streets, corresponding with French Montana, DJs, and even a few independent labels to keep his presence alive any way he could. Then, in May 2010, everything changed. A major legal victory flipped the whole power game upside down. A judge officially ruled that Jim Jones no longer had any control over Max B's music career. The court found that Max had already fulfilled both of his contracts with Jim. The deals signed in 2005 and 2007 were officially done. In plain English, Max was free. Sure, he was still locked up physically, but artistically, those paper chains were gone. His art finally belonged to him again, not to another man's pockets. That ruling reignited hope, and Max wasted no time taking advantage of it. From behind prison walls, he dropped his long-awaited album Vigilante Season in 2011, and it hit like a wave crashing back onto the shore. The project reminded everyone exactly why his name carried so much weight. That melodic gangster bop, that smooth sing-rap flow, that wavy sound he created, it was still ahead of its time. And the proof? You couldn't turn on the radio without hearing pieces of Max B and almost every new artist coming up. From the way they stretched syllables, to how they blended melody and street talk, to all the talk about waves, vibes, and freedom, it all traced back to the wavy one himself. Then came the twist no one saw coming. In 2016, after serving 7 years behind bars, news broke that would shock the entire hip-hop world. Then out of nowhere, Max's new legal team dropped a bombshell. They came swinging with a powerful new argument, claiming that Max's original lawyer had been incompetent from the start. Instead of fighting tooth and nail to build the best defense possible, the lawyer was allegedly too busy chasing a payday, hoping to ride Max's rap career to success if he beat the case. That fresh legal strategy, something known as post-conviction relief, actually worked. It was a long shot, but the judge saw enough to make a shocking move. He vacated Max's original 75-year sentence. From there, the tide finally started turning in Max's favor. He took a plea deal, pleading guilty to aggravated manslaughter, which completely changed his fate. That deal cut 55 years off his sentence, dropping it from 75 years to 20 years, and then it was reduced again, down to 12 years. Since Max had already served several years by that point, freedom was no longer just a dream, it was actually within reach. He wasn't going to die in prison. After all, his official release date was set for November 9th, 2025, a date that instantly became legendary among his fans. By then, Max B wasn't just another rapper. He had become a myth, a living legend whose voice still shaped the sound of hip-hop from behind bars. You could hear his influence everywhere, from underground freestyles and gritty mixtapes to the biggest studio albums in the world. Even superstars like Kanye West were drawing from the wavy energy Max birthed years before. The Wave God's story wasn't over. It was just waiting for its next chapter to crash back onto the shore. Even Kanye West couldn't escape the wave. Back in 2016, he tried to name his album Waves, but the entire wave community came for him hard until he had to publicly acknowledge Max B as the true originator of the sound. Kanye even went as far as featuring Max's voice on a track, giving him the recognition he'd always deserved. And it didn't stop there. Drake and Wiz Khalifa both gave Max his flowers, saying his wavy style helped shape their own music. Even Jim Jones, in one rare honest moment, admitted that Max B could have been bigger than Drake if he hadn't gone to prison. That's how deep Max's influence runs. Even his old rivals couldn't deny it. Now, as 2025 gets closer, the year of Max's expected release, one question keeps floating through the culture. Are Max and Jim still enemies, or has time finally killed the beef? From prison, Max sounded like a man reborn. He spoke calmly, calling himself a husband and a father of 4, saying he's in a new space mentally. The old anger that fueled his early days seemed to fade, replaced by perspective and peace. He even hinted that maybe, just maybe, he'd be open to burying the hatchet for good. But Jim Jones wasn't exactly on the same wave. Though he and French Montana finally squashed their old issues and even dropped new tracks together in 2023, Jim made it clear that when it came to Max, things were different. He said he didn't wish Max any harm, but he also wasn't trying to play friends either. And as this story continues to unfold, one thing's for sure, the legend of Max B is still alive and growing. If you made it this far, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and drop a comment about what you think will happen when Max finally touches down in 2025. Don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to catch the wave. The wavy one is coming home.